I'll have to wait till he comes in to address that. He's been very good in bringing revealing things to the show on Thursdays. We really appreciate that. We hope to get more guests like him who can make a meaningful contribution so that you out there can understand. We're going to be working very hard to bring in persons who have specialties in their various areas. They can explain it perhaps in greater detail than I can. Of course, when it comes to the Constitution, you know just who to talk to on that one. But there are other things that are happening in the country. I started to talk about some things yesterday, and some people called in. The calls were very good. Of course, some of them lined up with the Constitution. I could not resist that one. If they ask a constitutional question, I have to answer that constitutional question, particularly if I have it right on the tip of my tongue. The thing is, there are some things I may not have right readily available at hand. But what I do have and what I'm able to say must always be 100% accurate. If there's the slightest doubt in my mind that what I'm saying to you is not 100% accurate according to the source, the reliable source, then I just won't say it. Now, of course, I was hearing some things on the foreign radio station about the presidential elections in the United States, the campaigning that's going on. The Hemmings is getting very nasty. Their talk show host is saying some very unkind things, despicable things, on air live. I'm so delighted that we can't say those kind of things on this radio station. I know that much. And I think also on other radio stations. They're not allowed in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. It's a good thing we have rules. Where there are no rules, they go way overboard into people's personal, private affairs and make all kind of accusations, innuendos, rumors, hearsay. And you just listen to them and you say, wow. Let us hope that that doesn't happen in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas while the campaigning is on. People say all kind of things when they're on the campaign rally. But there are restrictions put on broadcasters, and Remember, he was Minister of Health, and Dr. Dr. Dowell, he is now the Minister of Health. Dr. Dowell, we need you to bring that kind of support that the Prime Minister had. Bring that to the Bahamas to help Bahamians here. They ain't going to be able to travel to the United States. So you got to bring the system here. And they say that's the Ministry of Wellness. They got the Ministry of Wellness and Ministry of Health and Wellness. That's what they tell me. So we got to get our people well. The same way the Prime Minister could get well, we should get well too. And the man in Fox Hill who got back pain and he got 6 daughters, he's trying to find husbands for them. You got to help him. We lost some young people in Fox Hill, some young men who could have married these 6 girls. So they can get husbands if we get all our young men being shot down. Young men, you got to stick around because the girls need husbands. Decent husbands now. So if you got some things you need to kind of clean up yourself, we are forgiving people, Now, some people out there mightn't agree with that. Bahamians are very forgiving people. But I don't think you should take advantage of their forgiveness and think that they are fools. That's wrong. We are loving people, a kind people. That's our nature. But don't take us as fools because you can get a surprise. A very serious one, too. Don't play around with God's people. God has a way of dealing with you if you mess around with his people because he protects them. He looks out for them. He makes note of every single wickedness you do against them because he says, I will repay. I will take vengeance on them. So the people of God say, okay, you will take vengeance on them. Fine. We will continue to do what you want us to do. So we have to be kind. We have to be considerate. We have to be understanding. I know this is hard for families who have lost relatives in murders, shootings and stabbings and all kind of funny things happening. It's a testing time. It's a trying time for us. But let me say this, as one caller told me, and I spoke to that caller this morning, enforcement of the law. Where's the enforcement of the law? What does the law say about capital punishment? We're having too many people being murdered. I think it's 77 so far for this year. That we know about. Now we know about them who got buried and people put them in one hole somewhere and we can't find them. And we just find skeletal remains after a period of time. So we know that person could have been murdered or that person might have died from some other cause. We leave that to the police to investigate. Police have all kind of information, Now, how much of that they are willing to share with the public, that's a different kettle of fish altogether. They have lots of information about crime. So you would think the police should be right on things when it comes to criminal activity in this country. But they say they need your help. I need your help too, Because there's some things Professor wants to do over the next 18 months. And time is running out. You think I can let you forget about that? No way. I ain't going to let you forget about that. Because you said to me, Professor, what is it that we can do? And I told you what we can do. I can keep reminding you of what we can do now. Now, some other things we could do later on. When the opportunity presents itself, Bahamians, there is a time span. You must work with the correct time. And what I said to you in the 18 months could be done effectively and efficiently. But it takes the cooperation of the constituents in a given constituency. Now, remember now, you got to be clean about this now. You can't be lying and cheating and robbing and stealing and doing all kind of funny things and expect things to happen. It is not going to happen that way. That's why I said 51% or more of the people in a given constituency must become righteous in their dealings one with another. Then the constituency is headed for progress. Stay about them people's private affairs. Don't get into that. And they'll be just like me. They'll tell you some things that, they know you can't talk it when they have confidence in you. Listen, people tell me things all the time. I don't even discuss it with my associates, not even members of my family. I can't talk it to nobody, period. But I do pray about it and ask the Lord to help me to forget it. And he does. Goes right out of my head. Bing, gone. Don't remember. That is what God does for us when we repent. He can't even recall it. What you talking about yesterday? I don't know nothing about that. It's a complete blank in his memory. And so when people tell me these confidential things, I am so delighted that I can go to sleep, and when I wake up, I don't forget about that. Can't remember it, can't recall it. That's how we have to be when we forgive people. And forgiveness is a thing that we have to live by. So people will do some things to you. They'll talk bad about you. They will harm you in some way or the other, either yourself or your children or your family or someone related to you, and you'll get upset about it. That's a reaction that you will have. That's expected. Because you're human, you're mortal, you're material, you're physical. And God knows that. That's why he will forgive you, but you have to forgive others. Now, I know that's a hard thing for some people in this country. You mean to tell me I got to forgive that fellow who killed my brother? What do you want to do? I'm not saying that he shouldn't be punished, There's a punishment to be meted out for people who commit murder. And we have to understand who has that authority, because the man will tell you, you should not take matters into your own hands. Say, call the police. Anything you see, call the police. Now, I can tell you sometimes they don't even answer you. They don't come. But the police never tell you what to do when they don't show up. Something happens, an emergency happens, the police never show up. What should the citizen do? That's a good question. I can put that out there for you today so you could think about that. Police ain't show up. The police supposed to be protecting me. That's what they tell me. I say when, where, how, and why. Should we be depending on the police force to protect us? See all these investigations they're doing, even people in their own ranks. They're accusations of some things that are not decent and proper. Let me put it that way. I won't use that word a lot of people like to use. I got to be careful with that one. People use it very loosely, but I like to express it in a different way. I know some things are not constitutionally sound, not biblically sound, not legally sound. I prefer to express it that way. But there's a word that is used so loosely by Bahamians. I am trying to avoid using that word, so you'll hardly hear me use it. But I'll find another way to express myself, because this is express yourself, this is the show. And you have a right to express yourself, and you want to use that particular word. I guess you can use it. There's nothing saying you can't. But I think some people use the word very, very loosely. And it's losing its potence that it ought to have, because people are very lax and very careless with that particular word. The lines are open, 326-3271-3602. I'm having my special guest, Mr. Cartwright. I guess he may be delayed getting here, but I'm expecting him to turn up because he told me he will be coming in today. Caller, you're live on air. We're waiting for the Brother Cartwright. Go ahead, please. Caller, you there? Call him not.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead. Hey, how are you? Go ahead, caller. It's Medusa, I don't know. Maybe he got cut off. I heard him, but he just went. Okay, caller, you'll have to call back. He's one of our regular callers, so I guess he'll have to call back. I don't think he was cut off, but sometimes these lines get all tangled up. Like I was doing some calls this morning and calling a particular ministry, and the lines get all tied up. Those things do happen from time to time. These are technical things, you know. So we got to get these technical people to get on it and straighten it out. It's a good thing we got a technical team here to assist and to help. Mr. Bedusi is back on the line? He's not. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, he's not back. The lines are open 3260271. Let me say it a little slower. 3260271. 3260272 and 8130271. I got to repeat that more often. 8130271. That's a line you can send your, what is it, the fax? No, not fax. Text. I think. WhatsApp? No, WhatsApp. That's my producer just told me. See, I got to get these terminology straight. WhatsApp line. That's the WhatsApp line. And you could also make calls on that line as well. 813. Let me repeat that. 8130271. Make sure you use that line. If you can't get on the other two, make sure call that one. You will get through. Okay. And then, of course, we have Facebook. I want to hear from my Facebook people today. You know, you have been bringing in some good comments recently, and you're not as colorful as you used to be in the past. If you know them colorful things, I got to be careful how I handle them because, you know, I got a responsibility to management of this radio station. I'm not allowed to say any and everything. You know, they don't allow that. I have to work under certain constraints, and I'm comfortable with it. But be that as it may, if you don't have law and order, what do you think you will have? Chaos and confusion. You don't need that. And these airwaves are very powerful, very potent. It can either be used for good or for evil. Now I will use it for good. And I'm delighted to be serving here in this capacity at this particular time in our history in helping the Bahamian people at a critical time when we needed the most. Well, I didn't know I was preparing for this. I had no idea that even the way things went, that it would go that way. I didn't plan it that way. It just happened that way. And God is very good. And it's nice to be in this beautiful air-conditioned facility and enjoying this wonderful atmosphere in this radio studio. And I know a lot of you out there in that heat. That's some terrible heat out there, particularly those who are working on the outside. I wish you could take this air conditioning we have in here and put it out there to keep you nice and cool. But I think what we need to do with that, I suggested this, and I want you workers to take this under consideration as speaking to your employers and seeing whether there can be some changes in your work schedule because the heat is very heavy out there. People can die of sunstroke. Then what? You're going to wait until something happens? Some people are already getting strokes now. I had a member of my family had stroke, having the same name as I have, and they thought it was Professor Sidney McArthur Walter Thompson. I told them plainly, when you get as young as I am, strokes don't fool around with you. They run from you. I can keep them running. And they go after somebody else. Now, that's just a joke now. Don't take that seriously, okay? But the lines are open 3260271, 3260272. Sometimes you have to have a little humor. Otherwise, you get too serious, you know, that would cause some other issues to come about, and you don't need that. We want to have a good life. This is a beautiful place, a beautiful country. We have tremendous freedoms, tremendous privileges in this country. We aren't going to lose them, Bahamians. We have to keep it. It's very important that we keep what we have. Mommy and Daddy work very hard to give us what we have today. So we have to keep it and work with it. I believe we have a caller on the line. Caller, you're live on air. Go ahead, please.
Brother Sid,
Hey, what's happening?
radio
Yeah, okay, all right.
Well, I'm glad to hear the Prime Minister's back.
Yeah.
And sound like he's in
He
good
sound good
spirit.
on the air. I heard, I didn't see his face, but I heard him good on
Yeah,
the
yeah,
air.
he sound like he's in good spirit.
Now, I done put in my request, you know.
But I like what you say.
All I
You,
want them to do is
you,
bring that
yeah,
same
it's true.
treatment
It's true what you're
they
saying.
gave
It's
to
true
the
what you're
prime
saying.
minister. I wanted to go to that 83-year-old woman in Baintown.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay? And
Cause
then
you,
I'll be happy about that.
yeah, you know the average person with this back problem and foot
All kind of
problem
back
and things
problems.
like that.
All kind of back
You
problems.
know, either if the people can't go to them,
So
then bring them here.
we could bring the system right here. We got the best doctors under the
Yeah,
sun. Huh?
bring them here.
And you got Dr. Dwayne Sands, who's a cardiologist, and he got all they say he's the best on the planet. But he's in the Bahamas, and we got some others top
Now the
doctors
price,
right here.
the price, the
No, all
price.
they have to do, no, we can deal with the price. I can talk about that. All they
Okay.
have to do is bring the treatment here, and that's the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Mhm.
We got to get our people well. Dr. Darwell has a responsibility to get sick people well
Right,
so they don't have to be sick anymore.
right.
And they have good health. The same way the Prime Minister could get that wonderful treatment. I want to see that happen for every single Bahamian. This man couldn't even stand on his legs.
Right.
He was in excruciating, that's the word they use now. I'm only doing what they tell
Mhm.
me.
Yeah.
Excruciating pain. You see, a
Yeah.
young fella like me, I don't have any pains at all. No back pain, no leg pain, no foot pain, no neck pain, no back pain, nothing like that. As young as I am. But I'm saying that there are others who are suffering, and not because professor doesn't have those things, means we should just ignore it. No, we have to help our brothers and sisters who got those pains, and people have a lot of pain. Let's help them. Go ahead, caller.
Yeah. Three quick points. If
Yes,
you
sir.
want to answer it, you could answer it. If you don't want to,
No, give to me one by one. Let me see how I
okay.
deal with it. Yeah.
The MP for Long Island. What's going on with his case, man?
Oh, the MP for Long Island.
Yeah.
Now, that's a good question. I am not up to date on the latest what's happening with him, but I do know he has quite a number of charges before the courts. I think when you see this kind of thing happening, it causes people to lose faith in the judiciary. I think the judiciary need to pull up their socks and take the matter very seriously because we are lax too much. We are too lax. And so it causes people to lose disrespect for the court system. Let me put it that way.
Because
That's how I see that.
the other night, I think I heard over the news they applied for to the put the thing name now. They applied to overthrow that case, but the judge struck that out.
Wait a minute now. Who applied to overthrow this
I don't know
particular
if this
case?
I don't know if this is lawyer or whoever, you know.
So someone probably representing him, it might be an attorney,
Yeah, yeah.
who applied to the court to have this particular
Called
case thrown out,
the court appeal.
or the Court of Appeal.
Yeah,
It ain't finished in the Supreme Court yet, right?
I don't know. That's
Oh,
why I asking you.
oh, okay. Well, it don't go that way.
You see,
How
that's
you could
why I
apply?
asking
You
you.
see the charges against this particular personality?
You see,
What kind of crap is that?
and he's been House of Assembly because after that they going on break, and the initial roll case supposed to start in July. We ain't hear
Wow,
nothing
ain't
about
nothing
that.
yet. July is
They ain't
already
update the
over.
public yet about that.
Right? Yes, that is true.
What's going on, man?
This dragging of the judiciary and the fact that cases are not being in a timely fashion dealt with by the judiciary is a cause for people to have lack of confidence in the court system. That's what's going to happen. See, the behavioral patterns of our people cause some good people who would have had confidence to lose it. And I'm trying my best to tell the people now, listen, see, you got some people in there who are not doing their job in the judiciary, in the House of Assembly, in the Senate, in high agencies agencies of the government. We have that now today, and we can name some of these people. They're right out in the open.
you said the other day the prime minister and those in authority have the power and the things to change things and do things,
Yes, they can.
but everybody is dragging their foot.
Yes, okay. All right.
Everybody is playing around these things. And when the small man in Baintown,
Yes,
Yellow,
yes,
Pinewood,
yes.
Fox
Fox Hill.
Hill,
Yes.
Gambier do something,
Don't forget Centerville now.
Centerville,
Yes.
you see they be dragged before the court.
Yes.
It's not fair.
No, it's not fair.
My last point. One of your colleagues, Rodney Monker,
Yes.
campaigning for Donald Trump, him and the man was be on the side of him.
Yeah, I heard that.
And if you call in and you disagree with him and you
Yes.
said he cut you
Oh, that's wrong.
because he wants you to say you supporting Donald Trump.
Yes.
There's no rules on these things. You could come. I don't know why they don't stay out of America affair, and we get all kind of problems.
Yes,
He's
we do.
supposed to be government advisor on
Yeah.
crime,
He's supposed to be a crime interrupter.
and now look, you cannot make these stories up.
Yes.
So how could you be advisor to the government, but you campaigning for Donald Trump?
Yeah. This is the
The next one who's supposed to be advisor to Carlos Reed, they haven't soon haven't passed in politician basketball.
Yes.
What's going on, man? Sydney?
That's the mixing up. That's a whole mix of things.
Man, they gotta stop playing games, you know.
Yes, sir. I agree with you. But we can stop it, you know. That's why I threw out the
Yeah, we
challenge.
could stop it, but ain't nobody coming forward to say nothing.
But this is what I'm saying now. I done have 3 weeks already passed into the 21st, the 52nd year of our anniversary as a nation.
You, you,
3 weeks.
yeah, you see that the young man in Fox Hill.
Yes.
Look at how I understand he was shut up all in his face.
Yes.
You hear me?
Yes.
You gotta see the
Very
gun bullet
serious.
hole all in his face
Oh my
everywhere.
God. That's sad.
You know? And his mother complaining and crying and stuff like that.
Yeah, I got to speak to that again. I can speak to that
Sydney,
again. Yeah.
I don't know. This place need a shake up, man. This
We,
place gonna get a serious shaking up.
we can get a shaking up. You could be assured of that. God's going to see to
Okay,
it
thank
that
you,
happens. Thank you, Carl. He made some good points. I'm going to comment on those points. He gave me a lot to talk about today. Until my guest comes in. I don't know. He must be delayed getting here. But this is Professor Sidney MacArthur Walter Thompson on the Global Radio Network 99.5 FM. We'll be back after the break.
Express yourself live.
322-2157.
From South Beach to Bay Street,
I'm pleased, I really dig your company.
it's your chance to join the discussion of today's issue. Let your voice be heard. Speak your mind and express yourself. Call in and participate at 326-0271 or 326-0272. WhatsApp us your concerns on 809-2310. Follow us live on Facebook and globalradio99.5fm.com. Express yourself.
This is Professor Sidney MacArthur Walter Thompson on the Global Radio Network 99.5 FM. This is a great day to be in the Commonwealth of Bahamas. This is the 1st of August, Amy. Now, I hope we don't have any murders this month now for the next 5 months. Could you think we could do that? We could get rid of all these murders for the next 5 months. No murders in the Bahamas for the next 5 months. Could we put a moratorium on murder? Amy, you need to think about that. Same we could put a moratorium on liquor licenses. No more liquor licenses for the next 2 years. We could put a moratorium on murder. No murders for the next 5 months. Let's see if we could do that, Bahamians, because too many lives have been lost. And I'm thinking about the lady in Foxville who lost a son, and I got some other reports on that. This particular personality who was murdered, he was the third out of 3 people who were being investigated in relation to this murder, not murder, this criminal activity dealing with money. 1.5 million is estimated that was stolen. And he's the third person who has been killed in connection with that. That means it's very, very scary because we can lose innocent people. They can be accused of something and, people not understanding, the wrong information gets out and a person can lose one's life. I don't like that at all, period. And we need to let the system go forth. We may not like everything. See, I don't like everything about the system, but that's a personal thing. But the thing is that we need to allow the system to operate. It's a little slow, So we can't be too quick to judge or to come up to a rash decision. That's not good. Now, I spoke about how the media handled this particular lady, and I wanted to be protected. She said some things on the air, and I heard it 3 times on the radio. I'm very disturbed at the way how the media has been handling that particular situation. You're putting this woman out, hanging out on the line to dry. Don't do that to this particular lady. She doesn't know how to protect herself. So some decent, honest, reliable people in Vauxhall should just pull her to the side, call her and speak to her, talk to her. And then, once all the facts are lined up, you could have someone present that to the public. She was very hysterical. And she may have said some things that would be detrimental to herself, to her family, and that is not a good thing. And so I'm saying to you, Bahamians, you have to be very careful what you say publicly. See, even me as a broadcaster, I'm very cautious what I say publicly. Now, what I don't want you to hear, you ain't gonna hear it. So get that in your head right now. Professor is not going to discuss it. And some things are not good to say publicly. It's just that simple. That doesn't mean you must tell lies now. That does not mean you must shade the truth. Because I'm not going to do either of that. But the point is, some things ought to work itself out, particularly when it comes to judiciary. It's a little slow, and I think they need to speed it up. Because Scripture says, because sentence against an evil work is not executed speedily. They got to move quickly in dealing with these murder cases. Sometimes it's 5, 7, 10 or more years down the road, and people then forget. You know, I can't remember what I did this exact. No, I was there on air. Yes, yesterday. I don't know. Well, I was on air talking. I know that. Exactly what I said, exact point in time, I'm not quite sure. So if you don't even remember that, that was just a day ago. How are you going to remember 10 years down the road? You're not going to remember. But we have to improve the quality of justice. Now, the particular lady, I believe, was speaking her mind and she got carried away. And the unfortunate thing is, no one was there to coach her along before she came and said those things which she did. I think we have a caller on the line. Caller, you're live on air. Go ahead, please.
Hey, good afternoon, Professor.
Yes, sir. How are you?
And good afternoon, Bahamas.
Yes.
Professor, I stick with the Constitution. I ain't say nothing about the Constitution.
Okay,
When you talk
that's
about the Constitution.
Yeah.
Hey, Professor, listen now. Because I can go and stick with this this legalizing this drugs on a Christian nation.
Yeah.
I can
okay.
say I can throw two chapters and go into something else.
Caller, I want you to say, can I get my marijuana tea?
You might want to do it.
Yeah, man, I want the marijuana tea. I drink fever grass tea. You mean I can't get no marijuana
Yeah, you
tea?
can do that. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Ain't nothing wrong with
Well,
that.
the man said it is good for food. That's what I read in my Bible.
That's what the Bible says. You can't go against that.
You can't go against the Holy
I
Bible.
make all these things for food, for thing up.
He say every green, but he say every green herb for meat. That's for food.
Genesis chapter 2.
I want
myself.
them. I'll call it. Listen to me. I want them to put it in the legislation so I could get my marijuana tea.
No, you don't need that. You could go and just get it and boil it. Ain't nothing wrong with that. But when you start to say that you going to go do something different with it now, then we have a big problem.
But the man say I can't have it in my possession.
No, listen.
And he find me with the plant, then he gonna arrest me. Say, Professor, you are out of order.
No, but once you ain't smoking it, you could boil it, make it tea, because he said, listen, I'm not a god of chaos. I'm a god of order. If it ain't no order, that's other people. And don't try to make it me. Don't try to make it us. Okay, let's go on.
Okay, go ahead.
Joshua chapter 23.
Yes, sir.
He said, listen here. I can do all the things. You ain't got to fight no more. But do not do what those other nations do.
That's correct.
Don't do what the other nations do. And I teach this chapter, Numbers chapter 6 and 21. Man, them people are so holy, they had to go on to someone to curse the people.
Yes.
Them people don't do nothing. They won't touch dead people. Man,
that's
listen
true.
here. Oh, now, Professor, going this way. I know them gun boys, them is joking. They trying to put one on the people that who have no business. Because listen here, Professor, we had a law, the drug dealers law.
Yes.
Now, if they catch a drug dealer, right, and you have anything, and you not can show what have you worked and to contain it, they take it.
Yes.
I hear a politician, I hear a senator, I hear nobody talk about the drug dealers law. Anything they find, you get locked up, and anything they find, you can't afford if they be taken. They be running on with all kind of foolishness. They ain't gonna talk that. That's I go on. Y'all have a blessed day.
Yeah, okay. I wonder what has happened to all this stuff that they be collecting, the money, the marijuana, the cocaine. What happens to it? We need to understand what's happening to it. And they're making this marijuana legislation. And they say they have something in there for the Rastas and the religious people and so on. But what about those who want some marijuana tea? You got to put that in there too. You can't just discriminate against the... Say I drink the fever grass tea, which is very good. So why can't I get some marijuana tea? Mr. Cartwright, thank you very much for coming.
Yes, good
They were holding on until you come, you know.
Good afternoon, Bahamas. Good afternoon, Professor. Good afternoon, producer.
Can I get my marijuana tea?
Well, all plants are in some form of a medicinal. So when you look at countries like Jamaica, they grow it wild and their government has used it as a form of finance.
Yes.
People in the countryside of Jamaica use it as medicine. Most Jamaicans who live in the countryside of Jamaica don't hardly go to doctors. They use the bush.
Okay.
And if you go to countries like the continent of Africa, that's what they do.
Yes.
They use the bush. But I've always noticed that when I was in Jamaica, that they always said, listen, don't abuse it.
Okay.
And what I found that in our country, among some of us, we abuse it.
Yes.
You know, as simple as if you get a cut, and people say, well, you know, the olden days, the old people used to grab the rum, pour it over the cup, and they rub it and bunch it up. You're good to go.
Yeah.
But you got some people demand, say, okay, just pour a little rum on the cut, patch it up. No, they will drink it and patch up.
Yeah, okay, all right.
So they abuse it.
Abuse it, yes.
With the medicinal side of it, and I keep telling people, I said, anything that comes on the ground, there has to be some good
Of course.
Now, how are we are talking about the legislature. Now, the Rastafarians, today, it's a religious faith. So for them, smoking of the marijuana is like a sacrament.
Yes.
So I cannot speak out against somebody who does something in their religious belief.
Yes.
But like I've been telling everyone, I said, how are we going to now manage this? Because you don't want the very rich in the country monopolize this industry because the
industry,
government's
yes.
saying it's an industry.
Yes.
You want it to be fair.
Yes.
So I've always remembered that under the former administration, people were talking about they want to come in and provide jobs. And I always said, it's funny that everyone who comes to the Bahamas, they pick up the most smartest words they use. Oh, we would provide jobs in your country.
Yes.
And I was like, has anyone ever asked Bahamians if we want to become owners?
Didn't the Prime Minister say there would be thousands of jobs from this industry?
But they keep talking about jobs. No one is saying, what about Bahamians who wants to be owners?
Yes.
We want to be stakeholders in our own country.
That's correct.
We don't want everybody to come into our country or the very rich to monopolize, and then you just say, okay, back to work. So I always tell people that when you do things and you put in a monetary system on, you should look at it carefully before it is handed out. I hear there will be some type of a committee or a board that would overlook this, and I would suggest to them that, listen, if you're going to allow the rich and you're going to allow the average Bahamian, you have to make it a level playing field. So if you're going to give out 25 license or 20 license, you should then give probably 5 to the rich, 5 to the middle class.
Why you want to give any 5 to the rich people?
No,
For what
because
purpose?
the reason is this. We all are Bahamians. And if I'm a Bahamian, I got money, I don't think that I should be marginalized from me investing my money.
We have been marginalized from 1729 right on up to now.
I wouldn't totally agree with that, Professor, because here's the thing I look at it. My grandfather was a man never had high school education. He was a simple farmer and a fisherman. But he was smart enough to realize that his father had a lot of land and he had a lot of siblings. So you know what he did? He decided to work and bought his own property. In 1924, you can imagine a fisherman or a farmer spends roughly like 50 pounds on 30 acres of piece of property and continually use that land, turn it over, and use the wealth from that to buy more land.
So when you look at the majority of the Bahamian people, how many were successful as you said with your grandfather?
Yeah.
How many were successful like him?
Well,
looking at it from the average Bahamian.
The average Bahamian had the opportunity, and a lot of them did, because I live in a community over the hill where 99% of the people who own property or had businesses were Bahamians, organic Bahamians. Mm-hmm. We've had Mr. Forrester Bow, who owned the Conch Club before he sold the property. Yeah. We've had people like the weatherman's father, Basil Dean, had a grocery store, which is still open today. Okay. You have the family, the Benabys. These are
I remember the Benabys, yeah.
These are families. So basically, I've always been taught that it's how you apply yourself and how you appreciate what is handed to you. What I've now noticed in the Bahamas is that even if you walk downtown, most of the business, we all remember the Roberts shoe store and all of them businesses. Yeah. What happened was when the founders died, their kids didn't want to continue the business. They wanted to inherit them. Yes, they wanted to take the money and do whatever they want. Yeah. And so what we've learned, especially amongst Black Bahamians, very few of us, when we inherit wealth, we teach our children and offsprings how to harness and maintain this. Okay. So what we do is they said, okay, I got dad died, auntie died also, they give me this. And the first thing they do, they sell it. Yeah. And because their love for having that liquid cash at hand, they don't realize that how long would that little bit of liquid cash will last you. Yes. Because you got to look at inflation, you got to look at the cost of everything. So when you grab that and you start to pay up in short order, you out of it. I've heard a friend of mine told me he had given his daughters a full-blown house, no tax, nothing on it. His daughters turn around and sell the house, and now they paying rent. So
That doesn't make sense.
yes. So
Yeah, okay.
what I'm saying is that as Bahamians, we've got to learn to look at one another, and sometimes you don't take the bad, take the good that you see in business from other Bahamians, and you apply it. You know, I always remember when I used to work in the telco, my late boss, Mr. Gonfiner, used to say to me, listen, I am such and such an age, and you're such and such an age. Don't care how much degrees and stuff you get, your knowledge will never come to my knowledge. Now, new technology, you will take advantage of it because you're still young. But if you have to go by the basics, and my experience will get me through. So we've been away from that style of governance. If you remember back in the days with Switzerland, they did the basic things, you know,
Yes.
basic to get the country going. For instance, when they took over the country in independence 1973, they were swarmed down with a lot of work.
Yes.
And we saw where they delegated work to others. And those others, because they realized that these fellas ain't gonna never get time to come back and take back this job from us, they've started to become like under gods unto themselves.
Yes. Okay.
And so in that instance, I'm talking about like the permanent secretaries.
Yes, that's correct.
If you look at Article 88, it tells you what their role is in
That's
the Constitution.
correct. Yeah.
But if you look at the way they operate today,
And I think so.
they believe that they're the boss
Yes.
and the minister is,
The
their,
minister
is their worker.
Is their worker? Yes.
And
that's
it's like,
correct.
read these articles, and so you would know
Yes.
what your role is. And you know, it's so funny of all of this. We've had governments upon governments since the Linden
Yes,
not doing their duty.
that's correct.
And so what they do is they pass it on, or what they call enlarge cabinet.
Yes.
Because I always say, how is it that a man with 9 members, including himself, as a cabinet in 1973, convinced 30 members of the parliament that the policies and the guidelines that they were going down and use was betterment for the country? Nowadays, we have, I call it a Gussie May cabinet. And we can't get nothing done with a Gussie May cabinet.
Yes. Sir.
So it's like, okay, we only had 9 and we got a lot of things done. We have about 30 plus people sitting in cabinet and we can't get nothing done. So it tells me, man, we need to cut down on the size
Of course.
it. Yeah.
Of course.
And
Yeah.
so when you do policies or you're going to implement new ideas and stuff, you need to do a thorough consultation with the public. See, because if you do something and you go along and say, okay, the public agree with it, and then you turn around later on, it becomes a problem. It means that you never discussed it. So, in essence, whatever you do as a government, you should consult your people. You should have the members of parliament fully understand that what are they going to vote on, what are they going to pass, and go back to their constituents and explain to them why they're going to vote this way. And if their constituents say, man, I don't think this is a good thing, then you go back and you carry that message.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I can't vote for it because my constituents aren't happy.
That's
And
correct.
that is how you have governance. We have now seen in our country that governance is put the other way. And I always tell people, they say, oh, someone said to me, well, you know, we need to go to Republic. I said, boy, you don't realize it, but we've been operating a republic for the last 30, 40 years.
Yes. Okay.
Because how many times we've seen our governments pass bills and do other things without consulting us
That's
or even
right.
asking our opinion.
That's right.
I said that's how they run in the public. Republic style says the government, they call it the Congress, the Senate,
Yes.
and the president, whoever he is, he signs off on it. So if you operating in that style, then you're not operating the system that was given to you, which is a constitutional monarchy.
Yes. That's correct.
And so these are the things I say to people. And another thing I always say to persons is that I have no problem with you critiquing the government because we only had one government at a time.
That's
I
correct.
hope every Bayman understand that. There's no such thing as a PLP government or an FNM government or COI government.
I think you need to repeat that.
There's no such thing as a FNM government, a PLP government, or a COI government. It is the government of the Bahamas. And the reason why they tell you the government of the Bahamas, because not everyone voted for you. So if you're a PLP, so you means you're only going to look up for PLPs, FNMs, or COIs? That ain't your role. The Constitution never call a political party name.
No.
It says the government. And
That's
these are the things that I think we wander away from. And we, the people, have abandoned our duty to hold our government feet to the fire and put questions to them about the style of governance and how it affects us in our daily lives.
Right. Okay.
And that's where I always tell people, don't be shy.
But you know, another caller told me that there's this fear. Where's this fear coming from? What is causing people to be afraid? And I heard the caller make some comments about it. What can be done to get people to be free of fear in a country that has tremendous opportunities in our land today, with all the tremendous freedoms we have? And people are dying all over the world to just get one single point that's outlined in our Constitution. We're going to come back to that. We're going to a break now. This is Professor Sidney MacArthur, Walter Thompson. We have Brother Cartwright here, and he brings some very interesting commentary to the show today. We'll be listening to more of that when we get back. This is Professor Sidney MacArthur, Walter Thompson. We'll be back after the break.
From Cable Beach to Montague, it's your chance to join the discussion of today's issue. Let your voice be heard. Speak your mind and express yourself. Call in and participate at 326-0271 or 326-0272. WhatsApp us your concerns on 809-2310. Follow us live on Facebook and Global Radio 99.5FM.com. Express yourself.
This is Express Yourself on the Global Radio Network with Professor Sidney MacArthur, Walter Thompson, and Brother Cartwright, who is my special guest today. What is causing this fear in the minds of Bahamians? It has been lingering for some time. I asked Brother Cartwright his views on it, and of course I'm asking you your views on it. Why is it that Bahamians are so fearful? Fearful of who? Fearful of what? Are you mean to tell me in a country with all these rights, and freedoms, and privileges, and countries that are dying around the world just to get 1 point which is entrenched in our country, just one? They even have one. And lives are being lost every single day. People are dying. They're fighting hard to get just one of the rights, the freedoms, the privileges we enjoy in this country. And we got plenty. And they are, hold on, Brother Cartwright, they are entrenched. They cannot easily be turned away. We have something so strong and so powerful and so dynamic in our hands, and we're not utilizing it. We have to do something about it. Brother Cartwright, go ahead. I see you.
Professor, what I've noticed in this country is that as time went by, if we look back on the history of our nation with our forefathers, like our grandparents and parents, they became bought into this idea that those personalities who became lawyers, doctors, were the success of the country.
Yes.
And before they came along, the successful personalities were the farmers, the fishermen, the carpenters, the mason.
Okay.
They were the people who would be considered who had skill, knowledge. And what we realized is as time went by, those personalities who became lawyers and doctors were persons well learned.
Yes.
And not only well learned, but they were very good with words.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, that's right.
And
yeah.
so you would find where they were saying to your parents, you don't need to have your son or daughter working hard in the sun.
Mm-hmm.
What we're going to do is, if you give power to us, we would make it easier for them to survive, to succeed.
Yes.
In the beginning, it was good. But when they realized that, hey, if we now take this articles called grouping together the Constitution,
yes,
and we teach these people, put it in the schools as you see in other countries where they get to understand their rights, they themselves became afraid that they would lose power.
Okay.
So by them not teaching, they created fear in the masses. And so if you look at, when we look at the crimes in the country, and I always say to people, listen, man, we have a lot of our crimes are not committed by women, young men.
Young men, yes.
So you have to take a break and say, hold on, why are young men committing all this crime? Why are young men taking lives like you're drinking a cup of water?
A cup of water, yes.
And you realize when you speak to them, a lot of them are afraid. They don't know how to survive. So when you have this basic fear, and I always tell people that the one thing I've always remembered was that the church played a major role in our first administration into independence. The church had a major role.
Oh, yes, they did.
And what has happened is now the church has shifted.
Yes.
Leaders have changed. And so leaders are now looking through the glasses of political and not religious.
Okay.
So now they come conflicted with themselves. And so they don't know how to separate the two. So what they do is they're like, you know what, we'll go this way and that's it. And so when the people are looking for answers, guidance, they only with two set of people the people look to. The first was their parents,
yes,
and then they looked to their religious leaders.
That is correct, yes.
And once they couldn't find answers, then they turned to the politician.
Political values, yes.
Which was the last option.
Yes.
And because he realized that parents, religious leaders, given that space, he
yes,
took advantage of it.
Took advantage of it.
I used to remember a politician could not go on a podium and speak.
Yes. Brother
I think we
Cartwright,
got a
I
caller.
believe we have a caller on the line. Caller, you live on air. Go ahead, please.
How you doing, Professor?
Yes, sir, I'm doing well.
Yes, great.
We
And
were, we,
Mr. Cartwright.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Thank you very much, sir.
we were
I think
discussing this.
Mr. Hyler would be there too.
No, he should be on tomorrow,
Okay, great.
along with Brother Cartwright.
I just want to debunk one thing Mr. Cartwright said, because I was once young myself, and I'm a male, of course,
Yes.
and it'll tie into this fear thing. Why are behemoths so afraid?
Yeah, that's what we're discussing today.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Let me tell you something. Fear is caused by insecurity,
Okay.
the unknown. Okay? And so you will find anybody who's approaching something which we are doing, which the young men are doing into growing up, going into the world out of high school. And there's one thing, I don't know if you guys could appreciate this, but I used to be a player. I'm talking womanizer.
Go ahead,
Cut
bro.
it any way you want to. I'm a Trump. Yeah. But let me tell you what happened is, I was okay because look here, I don't want to brag, but I was always good with the girls in high school. And today you will see it that young men are only trying to get girls. Young men are not going out there just killing one another, hurting one another just because they hate one another. It's because of the women. And if you could see the women today, Kamala Harris, for example, and the woke, this woman thing, all they're doing is putting themselves in a position to make men. You see the boys prancing the motorbikes on the streets every day. They only trying to attract women. The dogs, they fight one another for the female. So please just don't blame it on the males. The women have a part in this that they have to play too. They have to communicate to men. This will never happen because even Eve did it to Adam. The women have to communicate that God is the focus, as in the case of Eve, not my sexuality. And I want to use another word, with V, I don't curse, but that's all the guys want. They want to have women. They want to have this power when they walk in the clubs. That's why they're doing all kind of stupidness. Now, I've been seeing it all my life because I played in clubs all my life. But you just can't say young boys are killing one another for young boys, for just killing sake or just self-hate. Because it was said that if men were, back in the day, if there were no women in the world, men would just be sitting in some caves scratching themselves.
Okay.
Not killing themselves. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Brother Cartwright.
Yes. Well, like I
What
would
do
say
you
to the
say?
caller, I like when people can disagree
Yeah.
and we can be cordial about it. But I would say to the callers that when a man or a young man has nothing to do, he becomes idle. And it's easy to be misled
Okay.
because like I said, I live in a community where most of my friends when I was growing up got caught up from their older brothers into the drug trade.
Yes.
I was a young man going to a private institution, everything basically, parents work hard to get me there. But I admired those guys because they were my friends. I wanted to be likable in that clique. But then as I grew, time went by, and they were like, hey man, this ain't for you.
Mm-hmm.
You are the guy that we want to be like. We want to be that guy on that straight and narrow. We appreciate what you're trying to do. We understand what you're trying to do. But they were the ones who told me no. They deterred me from it. And so when I look at the back and I said, you know what? We don't give back. And you look at our system, and I keep saying this. Not everybody's going to be a doctor. Not everybody's going to be a lawyer. Not everybody's going to be highly academic. So you have to fill that void with something. Yes. So if you teach the kids today, the men, the young men, because I know most of my classmates, A1 carpenters, A1 masons, a lot of them can build a house without any help. If I want to build a house, I have to go and hire a contractor, this one, that one, and have all these things. My friends, them who have the skill, can just do everything themselves.
Yes.
And so If you keep, like the old Bible tells you that idle hands, it's a problem. That's what you know what happens with idle hands.
Mischief.
Mischief.
Yes.
So if we don't address our problems whereby the idleness is replaced, we always crack a joke about this around Junkanoo. Crime in the Bahamas has taken a lull at Junkanoo time. Because why? All the young men in the country, most of them are in the Junkanoo shacks, pacing, cutting papers, building costume. And that, I say, like, wow, if we could do that with this crew. Imagine if the administration of the country looks at this scope of the land and said, okay, we recognize that these are a group of young men has this type of talent. Take advantage of it. The wealth of a nation is its youth. People don't understand that. But for you to build a country, you need your young men. We are now putting our young men in positions where now we even got women builders. Women are now replacing men in fields that we knew men used to do.
Yes, that is correct.
And so what happens? People say, well, most of the guys only want to commit crime. No, because no one ever sat down and said, listen, man, this ain't good,
Yes.
Let us teach you. Let us sit down. Right now in the Bahamas, we don't have a proper trade school. People say, yeah, man, we got to be. I said, no. A trade school is where you basically, all you learn is trade. You should be able to, our teachers should now be paid a little bit more to recognize talent. The same way they recognize talent in basketball, baseball,
Yes.
and other things, you should be able to recognize talent, whether the child can work, is very good working with their hands. And you should sit down, call the parents in. Don't make the parents, call them in and say, listen, we watch young Sam here. He's very good with his hands. We recommend putting him in a classroom with his own peers that they all can work together and learn. If a man, or I would say, if a young man has something to do that he's being paid for and he can work and be paid, he would stay on that road. Good example was, look at the building of Atlantis. We've had many of our young men learn their skill, trade, trial and error.
Okay.
People don't realize. People say, I said, no, Bahamians built Atlantis. Not migrants, Bahamians.
Yes.
Young men were going into the bank after their first paycheck with a $1,500 in their pocket. I didn't realize, walking into Hoffers. And I always tell Steve Hoffer, I said, boy, Atlantis made y'all rich. Because guys were walking in there with $1,500, going to the bank, cash a check for $1,800, walking into Hoffers, buying themselves 4 and 5 pairs of shoes because they didn't understand it. They didn't understand having what this wealth was.
Okay.
Some, in a small case, managed to form companies and businesses and build themselves. Others continued, and then eventually they went back to their old ways. Because after Atlanta was finished, Atlanta was offering the young men the opportunities, but because their friends were saying, hey, man, you don't need to do that, man. That doesn't finish. Let's hang together. One time I remember over at Atlantis, and I wouldn't call his name, it was a friend of mine, at the time was a drug dealer. And he said, you know what? I said, what happened? He said, man, business slow. I said, how come business slow? He said, man, everybody working over at Atlantis, doing construction. He said, man, tomorrow I can apply to be a helper. So I said, what do you mean? That ain't. He said, but that's where the money at.
Okay.
And so he said to me, but a week later, he said, guess what? I said, what? He said, man, I made more money around that job than I ever make, waiting for them to come to me. I said, how? He said, because the fellas them tell me, say, look here, man, we can't use it on the job. But you credit me when I go home Friday, I have your money.
Right.
And he said he was crediting drugs to the fellas them. And at the end of the week, he made more money because when they got their paycheck, they went to the bank, they cashed it. He was like the lunch lady, picking up money. And he said, and eventually I'm glad for him because eventually now he has put that behind him.
Okay.
And he's now become a good citizen. Also, I look at the laws we have in the books. And so Lyndon talked about it, I think, in this last term in office, meeting in the convention, where he talked about the young men, we allow them to go to prison, and we're not trying to reform them and stuff.
Yes.
And then the former prime minister of the last administration, they came up with this act called the First Offenders. And I said to them, I said, you all can expand. And I would suggest to this government, don't just look at the first offender. Look at the whole scope of it and said, okay, which crimes you would not give persons a second chance if they commit those crimes. But if you look at other crimes, you can then say, you know what? You're now getting ready to go back out into the real world. If you stay clear of problems for 3 years, or for certain crimes, 4 years, 5 years, become a good citizen. We will clean your record up. You don't. All you have to do is go to the nearest police station, give them your name, that information. That's why I ought to be that. I like technology. We have everything. Stuff like I'm on a case now where we were locked up during the CARICOM,
Yes, yeah.
and the magistrate gave us a letter to go and sign it. And nowadays, I didn't realize it now that they have in the police stations these new machines whereby that you put two fingers in and it will tell you for bail if you in the system. Means now they're trying to move away from you just signing in. You just stick your finger in the machine. They even have a machine there for I think sex offenders. So all of those things you have to register at the station. So I was like, wow. And I was blown away. So I said, so technology, we've reached so far. Why not now challenge the young man who's coming out of prison? Make sure you give him some sort of trade or some sort of skill and challenge him. Now, you want to live a successful life without, if you go back to this is what's going to happen.
Right.
But this is what will happen for you if you take the opposite. Means now you get your record expunged, you move on with your life, everything. So now you're giving him an opportunity, you're challenging him to become a better person.
Okay. Now, the gentleman who called in, the last call, he talked about the fact that the males, I don't like to call them men, I call them the males, seem to be interested in attracting the females for whatever reason. Then, of course, he mentioned about Mother Eve, how she got Adam. The point is that we have a situation where, and I'm seeing this in families now, there is a breakdown in male leadership in the family. I look at my mother and father as the last generation of that strong parenting. I even see it in my own generation and the generations coming after. You see these cracks in the family structure where the things that we were taught as being important, we are not teaching those things to our children. That's point number one. Point number two, we're allowing them to do some things that we ourselves couldn't do, and we are very lax with our moral character. That is a major problem. The males are falling far apart. Now, we notice the tremendous slaughteration of our males in this country. We ain't gonna have no, see the man in Vauxhall looking for 6 husbands right now, for his 6 daughters. And we're helping him to try to, we can't just marry any and everybody. Then I know of another one who has 2 beautiful daughters, and the particular father wants to see the best for his daughters. He is having a struggle trying to find the right husband for his daughters. The males in the country, see, I don't call them men. You got to be, you were made a male. God said he created male and female. But now you got some other fellas who got some other funny things. I ain't going into that. But the point is that we are losing our males. Too many are dying. The woman was crying out the other night on the TV and on the radio. We do not see the fathers of these boys saying anything when something tragic like this happens. They're completely absent. They're completely silent. Why is that, Brother Cartwright?
Well, Professor, my generation would probably be the generation after yours. And what I've seen with most of my friends, and I could say this without having to worry about any backlash.
Yes.
Most of my friends who are successful today, most of them came out of a one-parent home. But the difference is that we, society, tends to blame or use certain things as a crutch to say, well, this is the reason why.
Okay.
I've known many persons older than me came out of one parent home. And that mother did a wonderful job. But what has happened is as time go by, we now having where parents have now look at the phone, the TV,
Yes.
and others to raise their children,
Okay.
whereby you had mothers, single mothers. I know many of them who made sure they go to work, get off, and have to go back to another job. And they said, listen, this is what I want y'all to do. And they leave persons in charge in the family and delegated those stuff.
Yes.
No problem. What has happened when you said leadership? When you now abandon leadership, it's like an army.
Okay.
If the general doesn't do his duty or carry out his duty, the army goes disarray.
Of course.
The general don't have to be in place or right there for the army to continue, but he leaves guidelines. What has happened is that in this country is that over the years, families have basically looked at excuses for not being parents.
Okay.
And what I'm saying is this. Okay, the father might divorce you, might have basically abandoned the home. The father might not have been a good father. So by him not being a good father, that didn't stop the child from trying to achieve to be better than his father.
Yes, okay.
So when you got young males, and if you don't have structures, programs, stuff, things like that in place, it's going to wonder. And if you notice it nowadays, excuse me, even the young females. I used to remember that when they first introduced these ankle bracelets, people were ashamed to walk the street or be known to wear. I seen young women and young men walk around with that ankle bracelet as a badge of honor. So it's like, where did we go wrong? And I always tell people that family, yes, helps you with leadership, but as those who are in charge of governance, if you don't introduce templates and ideology and other things in place, because you got to realize that the young males, excuse me, the younger children, they are the future of your nation. And if you
but wait a minute, hold on now, stop right there.
Yeah, they're the future.
No, that's what you say. I hear that,
yeah.
But I question it. You know why I question it? The mother of that child who was murdered in Fox Hill, and I understand from reports that came to me that that was the third person involved in a particular issue with this robbery that occurred some time ago. All right, 3 people are dead. We are losing this generation that's supposed to be the future. His mother's still alive, but he's dead. He came after her. I am very disturbed over the fact, as young as I am, we are losing too many of our males. For the size of the country that we have, national insurance is going to have plenty of problems down the road. If we can't keep our young working population going, because we're having problems.
Professor, I would say to the country like my father used to say to me, I can't be with you every day. I can't be with you everywhere. As a young person, you have to learn to make some choices. And those choices that you make will either guide you or it can ruin you. And I always tell people this. I live in the inner city. I've never, only since I got to the protest at CARICOM, was the first time I ever been in a police station.
Yes.
First time I was ever been in a cell.
Okay.
I'm in my mid-60s. All my youth.
Yes.
Never had these things. So what make me special? I'm not special. I just applied And I look at things when I was a young man. I said, listen, this ain't for me. When my friends decided that was for them, I said, you're all still my friends, but
Yes.
we cannot hang on that type of scene together. That's you.
Okay.
Now, when you come into the property where I live, those things you leave at the gate.
Leave it again. Yes. Okay.
And so we have to now look at things and say, hey, are you responsible? And when you think about it, right? Like you said, this was the third person that was allegedly
Yeah, third person that was
killed, alleged to a robbery.
Alleged to the robbery. Yeah.
And
That's
it's
correct.
like,
That's a serious
how is it that you
situation.
think about it? You lose your life over something that was not yours.
That's correct.
You didn't lose your life defending your property. You didn't lose your life defending your loved one. You lose your life over something that did not belong to you, or allegedly didn't belong to you.
Allegedly, yeah.
And that's where most of our problems are. If we look at most of our young male who are losing their lives, they're not losing their lives over or defending their property or family. They're losing it over things that was not intentionally belong to them.
Yes.
That's what we got to start to change, that mindset.
That mindset has to change.
Get into something that you own and build yourself.
Yes. Yes. I think what I would do is tell him I need to shut up now. I know how he goes, you know. This is Professor Sidney McArdle, Walter. We got Brother Richard Cartwright today with us. He's very interesting. I like it when he comes on Thursdays. We'll be back after the break.
Express yourself live. but agreeable to question. Keep it moving. From East Street to Blue Hill Road, it's your chance to join the discussion of today's issue. Let your voice be heard. Speak your mind and express yourself. Call in and participate at 326-0271 or 326-0272. WhatsApp us your concerns on 809-2310. Follow us live on Facebook and globalradio99.5fm.com. Express yourself.
This is Professor Sidney MacArthur Walter Thompson on the Global Radio Network 99.5 FM. This is a great day to be in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. I'm very disturbed, personally disturbed, over the fact that we're losing too many of our young males in this country. We only have a limited number of them. And I look back and I hear the cries of this lady in Fox Hill who lost a son. I believe his first name was Oral. I don't know if the last name is Roberts. But the thing is that I do not see the fathers. Where are the fathers of these boys in matters like this? Complete silence. Deafening silence. The mothers, the aunts, the sisters, the female members of the family. They don't see the even brothers. Where are the brothers? I came out of a large family, and my mother and father were very strict, and they brought in 3 grand boys into the family. My mother's always liked boys. She had 6 of her own. So another 3, she was happy to have them in. That's 9 plus 3 girls. 12 pigeons in the house. The point is, when you have children, you have a responsibility, and my mother and father knew that they had to take care of everybody. And they did that. Some things you have to deny yourself to take care of your children. Are parents doing that today? Parents be losing too many of our sons. This is bad. Now, I'm being told that the younger generation is the future. What kind of future are we going to have if we have mothers bearing their sons, fathers bearing their grandsons? What kind of future are we going to have as a nation? David, you need to think about these things. These are things that bother me personally because I come from a very large family. Most of them are around, But we had some very strict discipline. And I had to take care of my baby brother, who was the youngest in the family. And we were tight right up to this very day. From the day he was born, my mother planked him in my arms and said, "That's your baby brother." We've been tight ever since. Now he's a grandfather today. And I watched him grow up from birth right on up to now. And he is steering his family in the right direction. The point is that you have a responsibility if you have children. That's the thing. And we seem to have lost that. And I was never no buddy-buddy with my mother and father. I was always a child to them. And my elders, I was no buddy-buddy to them. They were my elders. And you had to say, Miss so-and-so, Mr. so-and-so, good afternoon, good evening. All these basic courtesies are just gone out the window. What has happened, Brother Cartwright? Oh, no, we have a caller.
I think you got a
I'm
caller
sorry,
there.
we have a caller. I'm sorry about that. My producer just reminded me. Caller, you're live on air. Go ahead, please.
Professor, I'm going to be very, very brief as I called
Yes,
in
sir.
before, and I appreciate you taking my call again.
Yes, sir.
But just listening to what you said just now, Professor, you live in the same house you were born in.
That's right.
That is not the privilege a lot of Bahamians have in this world. Some of us have to go and start from dirt 1.
Yes.
But just dwell on that for a second. But I forget to mention earlier when I called that there was a factor of fear Bahamians suffer.
Yes.
And then Mr. Cartwright mentioned when first time he ever been in jail. And
Yes,
I'm
he did.
sure that was so unfair because I was on my way to that CARICOM, but I saw the results. I got a little late. Thank you,
Yes.
Jesus. I didn't have to deal with that. And I saw it and I said, my God. And when you ask, why are we afraid?
Yes, I did.
Well, I hope right now, Mr. Brave Davis has witnessed fear because he's almost, anytime something happens to somebody over 70, You know, and I know, because that's my age right now.
Yes.
You're thinking you're dying.
He's not as young as I am. I can
Thank
tell
you
that.
very much, and I can make it real quick because I hope he understands what fair is. But he has brought that to the Bahamas like I've never seen in any other prime minister. Well, so
Yes.
much.
Yes.
The gentleman before him,
Yes, sir.
right when he wanted to deny the Constitution, I thought that was crazy.
Yeah, it
But
was.
these people must understand fair, and I don't know. I'll leave this with you. You think this Biden in America right now, Joe Biden?
Joe Biden, yes.
Do you think he's the Bible Nebuchadnezzar right now?
That's a good question.
Thank you very much.
I'll
God bless
think
you.
about that one. Mr. Brother Cartwright,
Yes.
can we speak to this fear factor? Because this is a real factor in the young males in this country and the country as a whole. I hope Dr. P, if he's listening, I'd like for him to call in and reign and give us a view on it. See, the problem is, I believe we can get rid of the fear factor. That's a personal view of mine. I try as hard as I possibly can to set an example, but there are others who have to help with this fear factor problem. That is not good for the country, Brother Cartwright.
Well, Professor, we used to have a saying that it takes a village to raise a child.
It certainly does.
And what has happened in the Bahamas, whether we like to admit it or not, and not picking on any grouping,
Yes.
but if you think of the word village, it means a unity, a one big family.
Yes.
What has happened to our nation is that we have become like the city of New York or like the United States, a mixed cultural entity.
Okay.
So when you have this mixed cultural entity, you're now looking at young males of different groupings.
That is
And they're
correct.
saying to them, well, boy, your parents don't have you like this. You can't do this. You soft. So what they tend to do, out of the eyesight of their parents, out of the eyesight of people who give them good sound advice,
Yes.
they tend to gravitate to those people. Then you also have the incident where the law enforcement sometimes overzealous. And it becomes whereby that members of our law enforcement who were probably bullied when they were young,
Yes.
they take that mentality where now they perpetrate it on our young males.
Yes.
Because I always tell people that if you watch in the communities, you would see 3 young men or 4 of them riding in a car. Police spot them, they get pulled over automatically.
Yeah, they get pulled over. Yeah.
4 elderly men riding in a car, no problem.
Yes.
And it is like, it's the mindset of the law enforcement, but they up to no good.
Yeah.
So
okay.
you now start to portray your beliefs and bad practice onto our young males.
Yes.
So they now growing up with this mentality that, hey, but if they can bother me, lock me, I might as well do something.
Do something. Yes. Okay.
Which is a bad
It's
thing.
bad. It is bad.
And
Yes.
You started to talk, I was saying to you earlier off air, that when we look at our law enforcement, growing up, we had plenty of respect for our law.
Oh,
Our
yes.
police officers were very courteous.
Yes.
They would even help some grandma coming out the food store and stuff.
Yes.
What has happened now is that we're now looking at our law enforcement as part of our society, but we have a society where now we're not honest with ourselves. Whereby that when they send people around to do background checks on these individuals who we can now turn over law enforcement power to, we know the fella ain't no good. But before we say, but I ain't gonna stop him from getting a job. So you say, well, has he ever known to be a problem child? No, man. He's a good child. He's a good child. And you mentioned with fathers and
Yes.
brothers. One thing we've always noticed that fathers, if they notice that one male child or any child in their household, or not in the household where they act, but in the household with their mother,
Yes.
they would come down hard on the child if he bends and turns to the left.
Okay.
Whereby the mother said, well, give him a chance.
Mm-hmm.
He can do better.
Yeah. Okay.
And so we call it in those days cloaking.
Okay.
So you cloak the
Yeah,
young
okay.
man into basically with his
Yeah.
bad behavior.
Okay.
You hear mothers always say that when a young male gets killed, my good son.
My good son, yes.
And you hear people say, man, that fella done been to jail 6 times.
So where are the fathers in all of this?
Fathers, I've talked to a lot of my friends who are fathers, said to me, man, they get tired trying to bring discipline because the mothers, tends to cloak them.
Yes.
And then they go to the law and say, well, he's being abusive. And so you have this kid guy say, I don't need the stress. And I always tell people over and I say, listen, man, it takes 2. It takes a male and a female.
Female, yes.
To bring a child in.
That is correct, yeah.
And if the male wants to go on into something else, do not tell the child that he is no good or she is no good.
Yeah, okay.
The child will see for themselves who was the good parent and who was the bad parent.
Yeah.
So you teach them good principles and you let them know. Do not bring anything into this home that you can't show a receipt for. Do not hold things for persons who can't show you a receipt. Because if the law comes to the home and they check the house and you have those things in your possession, we and the household are responsible.
Responsible, yeah.
So you have to learn to teach your kids good discipline from beginning. You have to teach the young males, especially our young males,
yes,
that you are now the defender of our home.
Okay.
So you have to let them know this is what we expect of you. Don't sit down and you know the young man isn't working, but he wearing a $1,000 watch.
That's right.
Or he got a brand new motorbike.
Yes.
He got a car. And he's like,
well, where you get the money from?
I know my son ain't working. And you start to see some of the characters that he's hanging out with.
That's correct.
And you was like, before you question him, you turn the other eye.
Yes.
Because why? Because he's now filling the role that you would have expected his father to fill.
Okay.
So you tend to give him that blight and allow him to continue. And then when the end comes to him, then you now regret him because you're like, who's going to take care of us? Who's going to provide? And so you hear them cry, my good son.
Yeah, they always do that.
And if you notice carefully, and they would tell you, the prison officer would tell you, most young male, when they go to prison, the person who visits them is not the father. It's the mother.
Yeah, the mother.
They carry, fellas, the prison officer tell you, you check the line, people out there like they go into Junkanoo.
Yes. That's correct. Yeah.
So fathers, some people say, oh, well, the father was not. No, fathers realized that when they were young, they were properly disciplined.
Yeah.
It didn't kill them.
No, it didn't.
They are not planning to kill their kids, but they want them to live a long life. They want them to be successful in life.
Yes.
But they want them to do it the right way.
The right way, yes.
So when I was talking to my dad, I remember when I was a young man and around the neighborhood, shooting marbles, and everybody knew my father was a man, don't like noise, don't like stress.
Yes.
So everyone knew I was good at shooting marbles. So I would bring the so-called, what we call the kiddies.
The kiddies, yeah.
And all of a sudden I look around, I'll see one person missing, and I was like, go, I'm getting home now. And as I get home, my dad said, were you shooting marbles? I said, yes, sir. Did you take the marbles from? But no, I didn't take them, sir. I went, no. Did you take his marbles? Give him his marbles.
Okay.
That I want. No. If I wanted you to have more marbles, I would buy it for you. You don't need to go out there and cause. See, I don't want no stress and strife come to this home.
Okay.
So he said, give it to them. And I was like, wow. And so I could have basically laid
So
on.
even the marbles you had won in
Yeah.
the game,
Yeah, I
you
had
say
to
it was,
do it.
oh,
Yeah.
the back. Okay.
So it taught me a lesson. Listen, you should know the people that you are dealing
You're
with.
dealing with. Yeah, that is correct. Yeah.
And what has happened with a lot of our young males, they are caught up in the avenues and the angles of money, fame. And so we always tend to look at these things and I said, what does it come with? What is the price? What price it costs for you to be known as, they say over the hill, in listening to some of my friends and the younger ones,
Yes,
they
sir.
will look at someone who's in something illicit, they say, oh, that's a boss. And I say, why do you want someone
That's a
to
different
call,
terminology.
why you want
yeah.
someone who won't call you a
A
boss?
boss, yeah.
What company you own? what business
What
you
business you running?
You were doing something illicit.
Yes.
And so I said, they highlighting you, you know.
Yes, they are.
So you have some young person or someone comes to you and they say, man, I need something, do something for me. You say, boy, I had to do this hard, man. This is a hard work for me. I had to go through this. You got to do
Yes.
the same thing. His mindset is that you have all of this power, but you wouldn't give me nothing. You wouldn't help me. And I always tell people, if you look at the businessmen in this country who are very rich, how often we hear of them being harassed by our young males? We normally see our young males harassing one another.
That's correct.
And most of the time, it's over something illicit.
Yes, that's correct.
So it means now, if you could steer his mind when he's young into empowering himself, he has nothing to worry about but falling back on because why? He has some positive trait,
Yes.
positive trait to work with.
That is
So
true.
if you look at our programs that we have in place, like our urban renewal,
Yes.
90% of the staff there are all females.
Females, yeah, that's correct.
And most of them are from that community. And I was like, why you have not reached out to the young males? And the first thing they said, oh, well, they want to. I said, well, have you ever sat down and talked to them? Have you ever sat down and explained to them?
Is that a gender bias that
Yeah.
we see happening?
So I say to them, I was like, if you sit there and you reach out to them and you
Yes.
explain to them
Yeah.
the benefits, you would be surprised how many of them would respond in a good manner.
Yes, okay.
But if you walk up on them and you harass them and you do things and and they say, well, man, I'm bothered with them because they won't even try to lock me up later. And I say, like, no, you have to reach out to them because, like you said, many of them in homes where there's only a mother.
The Mother's Day, yeah.
So if you're a male figure with authority, do something positive. Get him to see why you're reaching out to him.
Exactly.
Get him to think positive. And that's where, when you look at leadership from the very top, from administration coming down, you see why, and you understand people say, oh, you can't. I said, I understand why they're lashing out.
Okay.
They're reaching out for someone to not give them a handout, but to give them a hand up.
Up, yeah. And then up.
And then point to them, why are you giving them this hand up?
So then how does the country deal with this issue where you have delinquent parents? And it's a very major problem, particularly with the fathers of the children. It is apparent that there are differences between the mother and the father, why this division is in the family. I always came from a family where every living day of my life, up to the time they passed, I always knew my father, I always knew my mother. I never was in an environment where I did not know mommy or daddy, even when we had to go to an aunt or uncle or some other person they would send us to. Every living day, there was daddy, there was mommy. Even if we went away, there was mommy, there was daddy. Straight through.
Professor, I don't know if you understand when they talk in the church where they say christenings.
Yeah, the christening, yeah.
Where they talk about godparents.
Godparents, yes.
And one of the things the minister or the priest would say is that to the godparents,
Yes.
if one of the parents is failing, your job is to step in and fill that role.
Fill that role where the parents are failing.
Yeah.
But
So-
we need that today because we
so
need a
we
lot of
now
godparents
have-
now.
We now have a system whereby in society where the godparents are worse than the parents.
Oh, that's a problem.
Yeah. So let
Well, how do
them-
you get mixed up like this, Brother Cartwright?
I keep saying again, Professor, when you have a culture of different principles and growing,
You mean different people from different cultures?
yes,
Okay.
and you put that into a big pot,
Into a big part, yes. Okay,
you're
all
gonna
right.
get not the same old Bahamian peas and rice.
Right.
You're gonna get peas and rice, but it'll be from another culture.
So basically what has been happening is we have these people coming into our country, but they're not being Bahamianized because a lot of things are missing. Good manners, good respect, good afternoon, sir, good morning, sir. Now, some children do that, but it is not a common practice that you see happening on a day-by-day basis in our country today. People just pass you straight like they don't know you. So obviously, we're not Bahamianizing these personalities who claim that they want to be Bahamian citizens. Because, see, one of our principles in our Constitution is a national commitment to self-discipline. Now, for that to happen, each individual has to be a self-disciplined person. Who then is responsible for these national commitments that are outlined in our Constitution? How is that supposed to come about?
Professor, I would say it bluntly. We only know ourselves as Bahamians when it affects us. Meaning, if you look around this country, we have Bahamians want to be Jamaicans. We have Bahamians want to be others. But you got people coming into your country, they don't want to be Bahamian. They want to live in the Bahamas, but they want to keep their old identity. You know, when Linden was talking about the national service,
Yes.
I was at that age whereby they did the national service. I would have been one of those recruited for it. At first, I was like, man, they're trying to create an army. And then after listening and then watching the country evolve from us from a fishing village, going through the drug trade, and then we saw the drug epidemic.
That was
And I was
terrible.
like, he was onto something.
Yes, he was.
But we didn't see it that
We didn't
way.
see it at that time.
And I think today, more than ever, we need something
We
like
needed. But see, during the 70s, we paid a heavy price, an extremely heavy price going into the 80s and into the 90s. We paid a heavy price from the drug trade. We lost a lot of people. I remember when I went to North Andros, and they got one road that goes straight through into the north. And people were telling me, say, now, Mr. Thompson, you don't go there. You know, people don't go back there. Because I wanted to see as much of the community as I could, and I was held back from trying to go different places where I wanted to see the island. But I was advised by the people who live there, say, no, we can't let you go there. And I couldn't understand why until it was explained to me some tragic things happen in the back there. And they'd point to it. So they don't go there. So how do we fix that?
We as a society, Professor, needs to go back to being our brother's keeper.
Yes.
Our administration needs to implement great policies, not good policies, great policies that our young, especially our young males,
Yeah, we have to protect them.
can embrace and build and advance themselves.
Yes.
If we keep continually only, you know, you have to talk about we need a new prison. And I said, well, what you going to
Who
fill
you
prison?
gonna put in this prison?
Only
You
most
put
of us, most of our young males.
Oh, well, then
So I was
that's
like-
a loss.
So I said, that's a wash. So why not? If you build something for those who are already there, are hardened criminals, who will never see the day of light,
Yes.
and you put them away from those who are basically minor crimes that you can rehabilitate.
Exactly.
And so we have to now look at ways to build our
Yes.
communities.
Yes.
We got to go back to being that village.
Exactly.
And until we do that, we'll always be at a loss.
So maybe we should scrap this plan about building this gigantic prison, what they're talking about.
They don't need a big prison. We already got a big prison.
Yes. we
Just
do,
move our hardcore criminals onto something small, away
Yes.
from the younger
Yeah,
crowd.
that is correct.
And
Yeah.
it'll be better for the country.
Okay. Yes, Bahamians, we have a lot of problems, and I'm happy that Brother Cartwright comes on Thursdays. He always brings a wonderful perspective to the show. We have a lot of problems. We got to save our young men, and they say that the young men are the future of the country. And I mean, we are burying them, and the older men are sticking around. We have to fix it. Tomorrow, of course, is open line Friday. I'll be here. Brother Cartwright probably will be here. Brother Hyler will be here, and probably one or two others. This is Professor Sidney MacArthur Walter Thompson on the Global Radio Network, 99.5 FM. We'll be here tomorrow from 2 to 4. Thank you very much for listening and participating.